Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Jay. As you probably already read the title and you can see this in my hand, yes, I got this specifically to play Tears of the Kingdom. But first, I want to start this video off by talking about the gaming industry's sequel dilemma. The sequel dilemma has always been a big issue in the gaming industry. It's hard for game developers to tackle the difficult task of crafting a game worthy of its predecessor. And it becomes even harder when the previous game is a certified banger. Sometimes you'll get really disappointing games like, dare I say, The Last of Us 2. But other times you'll get a sequel that builds off what made the OG so great. I'm talking about Dead Space 2 or Red Dead Redemption 2 or my personal favorite, Mass Effect 2. It's not impossible to make a good sequel, but it takes dedication and care to not only please the fans of the original, but make enough changes to justify actually making the sequel other than just trying to cash in on another payday. But today we're talking about Tears of the Kingdom, which pushes the boundaries even further, and I think gaming companies should use Tears of the Kingdom as like a great foundation for crafting a sequel. As I stated earlier, yes, I specifically bought a Switch just to play Tears of the Kingdom, but I also got it to play Breath of the Wild too. And if you want the TLDR, it was absolutely 100% worth it. I do want to clarify, I did get my Switch for other reasons too. I wanted to play through SMT3 and SMT5 and like indie games like Hollow Knight. But my main push was Tears of the Kingdom and how beautiful the special edition Switch OLED is. Like, dude, so pretty. But anyways, I finally just beat Tears of the Kingdom after just beating Breath of the Wild, and man, wow. I've gotten about 150 hours in total with these two games alone, and they're both absolutely phenomenal, especially Tears of the Kingdom. And that's not me even doing everything in either of these games. I still had a bunch of side quests to do in both of them. But seriously though, this might be the best sequel I have ever played. Tears of the Kingdom took what made Breath of the Wild so amazing and literally turned it up to 11. If you ask me what I wanted going into Tears of the Kingdom, I would tell you I want the same exploration from Breath of the Wild, maybe more story, better bosses, and better shrines. Not only did Nintendo deliver, but they added things I couldn't even possibly fucking dream of. Before we jump on into Hyrule though, I just want to make it clear that I'm not going to be having any major spoilers in this video. I will be talking about the story to some extent, but don't worry if you haven't played these games yet. But anyways, boys, let's eat. Let's touch a little bit on Breath of the Wild before we dive into Tears of the Kingdom. Breath of the Wild's open world in of itself is truly amazing to explore. The game doesn't give you all that much direction after the beginning and just sends you out into the land of Hyrule, and it's this freedom and openness of Breath of the Wild that makes it so amazing. As soon as you get your glider after the tutorial, you can go to literally whatever region in whatever order you want to. Hell, if you wanted to go immediately to the final boss and face Calamity Ganon, you absolutely could. You'd get clapped, but you could do it. Breath of the Wild has fun and amazing mechanics. The game introduces these shrines, which are always a blast to do. Some are more annoying than others. I will admit with my low IQ, I had to doodle a few solutions, but they were all still fun. The bosses are a blast to fight, and the divine beasts are all memorable. Each divine beast is introduced through quest lines in each of the region's main towns. The way you are slowly fed the lore is very engaging, and it's this slow world building that makes you want to learn more and more about Hyrule. As you all know, Breath of the Wild is praised for literally so many reasons, and I absolutely loved my time with it. It made me super stoked to dive into the long-awaited sequel, Tears of the Kingdom. I'm really happy I played Breath of the Wild before Tears of the Kingdom, because it only just made me more excited to dive into this sequel. I try to keep my knowledge very limited, because I just wanted to experience everything for myself. And I'm so happy I did, because holy shit, Nintendo knocked it out of not only the park, but out of the galaxy and into Andromeda. I heard it was amazing, but it's even better than I could have possibly imagined. This is a sequel that was very, very carefully crafted, and you can feel all the love and effort that was poured into it. Tears of the Kingdom took Breath of the Wild's exploration of Hyrule and literally tripled it. They added literal sky islands and an entire underground section beneath Hyrule that really reminds me of the underground sections in games like Elden Ring or Dark Souls. They also kept the mainland of Hyrule the same, but added some changes to complement the time jump in the story. Once I woke up and dove back into the land of Hyrule and got the title card, I got literal chills. And I'm getting chills again just talking about it, to be honest. Shit got me bricked up. But anyways, exploration is even more incentivized in Tears of the Kingdom with the amount of things that you can do and find throughout the world. With more places to explore, that means more and more shrines to do, baby. The shrines are even more fun to do in Tears of the Kingdom, and it's all due to one aspect I haven't even mentioned yet. And it's the new abilities you get. These abilities are called Zonai abilities, and they're similar to the abilities you get in Breath of the Wild, but 10 times better in my opinion. You have Ultra Hand, which basically lets you build whatever the hell you want. This is one of my favorites because you can do so much with this one ability. There are obviously some limitations, like you can only use certain materials, but Nintendo gave us so many things to use, so limitations are very minimal. I will be honest, I didn't try to build anything too crazy like weapons of mass destruction because my IQ is too low. I'm not the Oppenheimer of Hyrule, to be honest. Nintendo gave us a lot to do with Ultra Hand besides just building cool shit. There are shrines where you can only complete them by being creative and building creations to help complete the shrine's objective. Some of my favorite shrines are the ones you unlock on the Sky Islands. In order to gain access to these shrines, you need to transport these green crystal looking things to the shrine's entrance, and sometimes they'd be on a completely different island, so you'd have to be creative and build something to transport this green crystal. It's literally too much fun, and it's so satisfying to build something and have it behave the way you wanted it to. There's always a use for Ultra Hand, and I'm so happy this was such a main focus of the game. The next Zonai ability is Fuse, which also adds so much creativity, but in a different way compared to Ultra Hand, as Fuse only works on your weapons. You want to add a rock to a rusty sword and smack the shit out of boulders to get gems and sell those gems for rupees? Or fuse crazy monster parts onto your sword and increase the damage by an insane amount. You can even fuse stuff onto your shields. There are these Zonai devices that spit fire, and you can throw it onto your shield, and it literally turns your shield into a flamethrower. Weapon degradation is still a mechanic in Tears of the Kingdom, but I think it still fits well because it keeps you constantly crafting and creating new weapon creations. The last two important Zonai abilities are Recall, which basically stops and bends time, and then there's Ascend, which basically lets you phase shift through anything vertically. Both of these abilities are super fun to use and have a lot of usefulness in shrines, and just in general, they help you travel and explore Hyrule. While you're around exploring Hyrule, you'll eventually end up in the same main towns from Breath of the Wild, but they've been slightly altered due to the time jump from Breath of the Wild to Tears of the Kingdom, and it's super cool seeing each town again and how it's changed. Hell, even almost all the memorable characters that you meet in Breath of the Wild will come back at least in some sort of capacity in Tears. And actually, I think this leads us nicely into the story of Tears of the Kingdom. Like I said earlier, I'm gonna be avoiding spoiling anything, but goddamn, the story is so great in these games. I've seen some people talking about how Nintendo sucks at storytelling in the new Zelda games, and while I guess I can see the points they are trying to make, but to be honest, I gotta completely disagree. The story in both of these games doesn't hold your hand, and the story is definitely less linear. It's up to the player to piece together what is happening in the land of Hyrule, and I highly recommend grabbing the memories, which are basically cutscenes. But you want to grab the memories in both of these games because it adds a whole additional layer of storytelling that's definitely not worth missing. I do gotta say the story in Tears of the Kingdom is a little bit more ambitious. Also, I think the villain is super sick. I liked Calamity Ganon in Breath of the Wild, but the stakes feel a lot higher in Tears of the Kingdom. And the game definitely shows you this with a banger intro. I forgot to mention how much I love the fact that Nintendo just throws you into the game. It's a great way to really start and send you off into the sequel. But anyways, I'm not going to touch too much more on the story, but I did want to quickly bring up the bosses in Tears of the Kingdom, as I love the variation of bosses in between regions. One thing I wish Breath of the Wild had was a little bit more variation in bosses, but it really wasn't a big deal as most bosses still had different mechanics. It was just their designs that were very similar. I am happy though that each boss in Tears feels and looks vastly different from each other. It's pretty obvious that both of these games are special, and I'm so happy that Tears of the Kingdom is everything and more that I wanted out of the sequel, and I think a lot of people agree with that too. To be honest, I don't think that there's a single criticism that I have of either of these games. Obviously, the Switch is still the Switch, so it's not very powerful. There are obvious FPS issues scattered throughout these games, but for me personally, it didn't hold back the experience in any way. And in fact, I think both of these games are genuinely beautiful, and I think Tears of the Kingdom should be the new standard for sequels going forth. But I do need to keep my expectations in check because of the current video game climate that we live in today. Gotta keep the expectations low, am I right, boys? Seriously though, it was so refreshing to play such an amazing new complete game for the first time in a while. Sometimes I forget what it feels like to be respected as a consumer instead of trying to be absolutely milked into spending as much money as possible. It can be really hard to nail a sequel, so to have Nintendo do it so perfectly is honestly super impressive. I'm so happy I got to experience these games, and the experience alone was worth my money. I know not everybody has money to go throw on a brand new console. I'm super fortunate I was actually able to do it. I'm honestly going to be using my Switch all the time now. Even if Nintendo announces the Switch 2 in like 6 months, I'm still going to be using the hell out of my Switch. I'm also super excited to try some other Nintendo exclusives now that I'm part of the Nintendo family again. Also, if you haven't played either of the new Zelda games, I highly recommend starting with Breath of the Wild, so that way when you jump into Tears of the Kingdom, you can see how Hyrule's changed from the first game, and you'll have an even better experience going through it. Do I think Tears of the Kingdom is going to be Game of the Year? Maybe. Too early for me to say, to be honest. 2023 has been a banger year so far. I think it'll 100% be a contender for sure. But anyways, I just wanted to sit down and talk about my experience with both of these games. Probably won't do a ton of Switch content, but I figured that these games are so special, I had to sit down and make a video on it. But I think that's a good place to wrap up today's video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you did, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and yeah, I'll talk to you guys soon. Peace.